Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling, wondering why sleep doesn't come as easily as it used to? Or maybe you felt your legs growing weaker, making everyday tasks feel like a challenge. Many of us over 70 assume these changes are just part of getting old. But what if I told you that's not entirely true? What if it's not just aging or less movement causing these struggles? Too often, we overlook these signs, thinking they're minor inconveniences when they're clues to something deeper. In this video, I want to share with you a simple change that transformed my daily life and helped me feel truly alive again. By the end, you'll discover the one habit that made all the difference. Something you can start today to reclaim your strength and joy. So, if you've been feeling alone or stuck, stick around. This story is for you, and I'll be right here walking through it with you every step of the way. If you are not subscribed, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Quiet Loneliness After 70. There's a certain kind of silence that seeps into your life after 70. It's not the peaceful quiet that comes from a house well lived in, or the hush that settles after a family gathering. No, it's something different. This silence is heavy and still as if the very air has learned to tiptoe. Maybe you know what I mean. You get up in the morning, and the house is the same as you left it the night before. The television remote is where you put it. The chair by the window is waiting, untouched. The phone sits still and silent. No new calls, no new messages. Breakfast is just you, your coffee cooling a little too quickly, the toast not quite as satisfying as it once was. You might find yourself lingering a little longer in the grocery store, hoping to catch the eye of a friendly cashier, or maybe chatting a minute more with a neighbor out for her morning walk. These little interactions, as brief as they are, start to feel like lifelines. Something that reminds you the world is still moving outside your four walls. And yet, when you come home and close the door, it feels like everything stops again. So many of us have lived busy, noisy, purpose-filled lives. We've worked, we've raised children, we've volunteered, traveled, hosted holidays, fixed leaky faucets, planted gardens, and watched the seasons turn. We're used to being needed and noticed. But after 70, after the children have grown, friends have scattered or passed, and the calendar isn't as full as it used to be, an unfamiliar emptiness can creep in. It's easy to believe that this loneliness is simply a part of aging, that it's as inevitable as gray hair or stiff knees. Isn't this just the way life goes? But let me ask you something different. What if this quiet loneliness isn't an unavoidable part of getting older? What if it's not a fixed rule of aging, but a signal, a sign that something important is missing, something that still can be found? For years, I thought I was just adapting to a slower, quieter phase of life. I told myself I was lucky to have peace, that solitude meant freedom, and that I was learning to enjoy my own company. But there were days, maybe more than I care to admit, when that solitude began to feel like isolation. The difference is subtle but profound. Solitude is a choice, a gentle space you create for yourself. Loneliness, though, is what happens when the connection is lost. Not just with others, but with meaning, with purpose, with the small reasons that make every day worth waking up for. The truth is that our brains and our hearts are wired for connection, even as we grow older. It's not just about being around people, but about being seen, heard, and valued. Scientific studies have shown that social isolation in seniors can be as damaging to health as smoking or a poor diet. Researchers at the National Institute on Aging have found that loneliness increases the risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, depression, and even dementia. Feeling chronically lonely can reduce life expectancy just as much as obesity or physical inactivity. And yet, so many older Americans quietly accept this loneliness, thinking it's just part of life's natural progression. It's not your fault if you've ever felt this way. Our culture often overlooks the emotional needs of seniors, focusing instead on physical health, medications, and checkups. But the truth is, loneliness is a real health risk, and it deserves just as much attention. If you found yourself sitting at the window, watching the world go by and wondering where you fit in, know that you're not alone. It might surprise you to learn that nearly 1 in 3 Americans over the age of 65 lives alone. The number rises sharply after age 70, especially after the loss of a spouse or close friend. But what's even more striking is that feeling lonely isn't only about living alone. Many seniors who live with family still report feeling isolated. It's the lack of genuine connection, the kind where you feel understood, where your story matters, that makes the difference. So what can we do? Is there a gentle, real-world solution that can bring light back into these quieter days, without feeling forced or overwhelming? I believe there is, and it starts with a simple step: reaching out, even in small ways, to rebuild connection. I remember meeting Ruth at our local community center a few years ago. She was 78 then, recently widowed, her children scattered across the country. Ruth confessed that she often went days without speaking to another soul. Her daughter called once a week, but the rest of the time, it was just her and the television, the same news stories playing on repeat. One afternoon, on a whim, Ruth wandered into the community center, drawn by the sound of laughter echoing from the hallway. There was a card game in progress, nothing fancy, just a handful of people gathered around a battered old table, shuffling a deck and sharing stories. Ruth was nervous at first. She worried she wouldn't fit in, that people would notice how long it had been since she'd played cards or told a joke. But someone smiled and made room for her. "You're just in time, we need another player," a gentleman said, sliding a chair her way. That was all it took. Ruth didn't have to be the life of the party. She just needed to show up. Over the weeks, she became a regular at those afternoon games. She started baking cookies to share, remembering birthdays, and learning the names of grandchildren and pets. The loneliness didn't vanish overnight, but it softened. Ruth found herself looking forward to Tuesday afternoons. She started calling her daughter with happier news to share. The world felt a little bigger again. Science supports Ruth's experience. Even small, regular social interactions, a conversation at the post office, a shared walk with a neighbor, volunteering a few hours a week, can dramatically improve emotional well-being. These moments spark the release of oxytocin, the connection hormone, which soothes anxiety and strengthens the heart, literally and figuratively. Maybe you're thinking, "But I'm not outgoing. I don't know where to start." That's perfectly okay. Connection doesn't have to mean joining big crowds or reinventing yourself. It can be as simple as waving to a neighbor each morning, writing a letter to an old friend, or signing up for a book club or gardening group at the library. Many local libraries, senior centers, and even churches offer gentle, welcoming spaces for older adults to connect. No pressure, no expectations, just genuine company. You might also consider picking up the phone. Is there someone you haven't talked to in a while? An old friend, a cousin, a neighbor who used to stop by? Sometimes the hardest part is making that first call, but you might be surprised how glad the other person is to hear your voice. If you have access to the internet, there are countless online communities and video chats designed just for seniors. Many organizations offer virtual coffee hours, hobby groups, and support circles where you can join from the comfort of your home. Don't let technology intimidate you. Ask for help if you need it. Often, a grandchild or a neighbor is happy to show you the basics. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. The most important thing is to remember that loneliness is not a permanent condition. It's a signal, like hunger or thirst, that you need something vital, connection. You have every right to reach out for it, and to receive it in return. Your story isn't over. There are still people who want to hear it, and new friends you haven't met yet. Maybe you'll find your version of Ruth's Tuesday afternoons, a regular moment to look forward to, a reason to get dressed and step outside, even if just for a short walk or a friendly chat. These small actions add up, quietly stitching new meaning into our days. I want you to know truly that you matter. Your life still has great value, and your presence is needed more than you realize. If you're feeling the quiet loneliness after 70, take a gentle step today, however small, toward connection. Smile at someone. Make a call. Try one new thing. You might just find, as Ruth did, that the world is waiting to welcome you back. There's a beautiful strength in reaching out, especially when it feels hardest. Remember, it's never too late to find joy, laughter, and companionship. You are not invisible. You are not alone. The next chapter of your life can be just as rich, just as meaningful as any that came before. And sometimes, all it takes is one small, brave step. So, what will your first step be? I hope you'll let yourself discover it. Chapter 2. I thought this was just normal aging. There's a story I've heard time and time again from friends, neighbors, and even strangers at the grocery store. I guess this is just what happens when you get old. It's a phrase that's almost as common as, "How are you?" For those of us who've seen our hair turn silver and our hands grow softer with age. It's the quiet sigh that follows every little ache in the knee, every forgotten name, every night spent tossing and turning. After all, haven't we all been taught that growing older means losing a little bit of ourselves each year? We come to expect that energy will fade, that our circles will shrink, and that life's bright colors will slowly turn to gentle pastels. For a long time, I thought this way too. I convinced myself that being tired, feeling down, or struggling to keep up with things was just my new normal. I would laugh off my forgetfulness, senior moments, I'd say with a shrug. If I lost track of the days, or if my joints felt stiff, I'd joke that I was just falling apart, one piece at a time. Maybe you've told yourself the same thing. Maybe, like me, you've learned to chalk up all sorts of small losses, of energy, of motivation, of joy, to the simple, unstoppable march of time. But have you ever stopped to wonder, does it have to be this way? Is it possible that not everything we blame on aging is truly inevitable? Could some of the challenges we face be signals, warnings that something in our body, our mind, or our spirit needs attention, not resignation? This was the question that quietly changed everything for me. One autumn morning, as the leaves were turning gold outside my window, I realized I'd been in a slump for months. I was sleeping longer but waking up tired. Meals had lost their flavor. I found myself saying no to invitations from friends. I started to feel invisible, even in a crowded room. But every time the thought crossed my mind, I'd tell myself, this is just what happens. You're getting older, that's all. It turns out I wasn't alone in this thinking. It's a common story across America. A study from the University of Michigan found that nearly half of adults over 65 believe most of their health problems are just part of aging, and that nothing much can be done about them. This belief is powerful and dangerous because it can keep us from seeking real solutions or even noticing when something is wrong. What I didn't realize was that our bodies are incredible communicators. When we feel sluggish, withdrawn, or forgetful, it's not always just old age. Sometimes, it's dehydration or a side effect of medication. Sometimes, it's a lack of social interaction, which science tells us can be as hard on the heart as smoking. Sometimes, it's depression, which is more common in seniors than most people realize, but often overlooked or dismissed as just the blues. Our culture is so focused on youth and productivity that it's easy to start believing our best days are behind us. We make jokes about senior moments and pretend not to mind when our knees creak. But deep down, there's often a quiet grief, a sense of loss that we're not supposed to talk about. The trouble is, when we accept every ache or sadness as normal, we stop looking for ways to feel better. We give up too soon. Let me pause for a moment and share the science behind this. While it's true that our bodies change with age, Muscles shrink, metabolism slows, and some memory lapses are expected. The human brain and body are far more adaptable than we give them credit for. Recent research from Harvard Medical School shows that seniors can continue to build muscle, learn new things, and maintain emotional resilience well into their 80s and beyond, as long as they nurture their bodies and minds. The decline we often accept as just aging is frequently due to a combination of factors: less movement, less social connection, poor nutrition, unaddressed medical conditions, and sometimes the stories we tell ourselves. Here's a simple but powerful example. A group of seniors in their 70s were invited to participate in a gentle strength training program, nothing extreme, just using light weights and their body weight. Within months, not only did their strength improve, but their mood lifted, their sleep became deeper, and even their memory sharpened. All because they stopped accepting tiredness and weakness as inevitable and tried something new. For me, the turning point came when my daughter encouraged me to see my doctor. Not for anything urgent, just a regular checkup. I almost didn't go. I told her there was no point, that it's just aging. But she insisted, gently. And I'm glad she did. My doctor listened, really listened, to my list of complaints. He didn't brush them off. He checked my medications and found that one of them was likely making me drowsy and forgetful. He suggested a vitamin D supplement and recommended joining a weekly walking group at the local park. You might be surprised, he said, how much these small changes can help. At first, I was skeptical. How could a vitamin, a new prescription, and a walk with strangers change the way I felt? But I decided to try. The results weren't dramatic overnight, but over a few weeks, I began to notice a difference. My mood lifted a little. My steps felt lighter. The people in the walking group were friendly, and some were just as slow as me. It wasn't just my body that felt better. It was my spirit. Stories like mine aren't unique. My friend Harold, who's 81, always thought his afternoon fatigue was just a part of getting old. One day, his granddaughter asked if he'd like to join her in a simple stretching routine she found online. They laughed their way through the first session, but Harold noticed he started to feel more awake after lunch. Before long, he was doing the routine every day, and his energy picked up. It wasn't a miracle. It was just a new habit, sparked by a willingness to believe things could get better. So, if you've been telling yourself, this is just normal aging, I want to gently challenge you. What if it's not? What if you could feel more alive, more connected, and more hopeful, simply by questioning that old story? The next time you find yourself blaming age for your aches, your sadness, or your tiredness, pause and ask, is there something I can do? Is there someone I can talk to? Is there a small change I can try? Maybe you'll make a doctor's appointment, call a friend, or look up a new recipe to try. Maybe you'll start taking a daily walk, or try an art class at the local senior center. Maybe you'll ask your pharmacist to review your medications, or reach out to a neighbor just to chat. The solution doesn't have to be big or dramatic. It just has to be yours. The most important thing is to remember you're not alone. So many older adults feel the same way and are quietly hoping for something more. Aging is inevitable, but feeling isolated, weak, or invisible doesn't have to be. There's always a step you can take, a question you can ask, a hand you can reach for, a possibility you can open yourself to. If no one else has said it to you today, let me be the one. You matter. You deserve to feel strong, to feel seen, to feel hopeful, no matter what the calendar says. Aging brings challenges, yes, but it also brings wisdom, perspective, and the chance to write new stories. So, don't accept just normal aging as your only story. Let yourself imagine something better. Try one new thing this week, however small. Keep your curiosity alive. And remember, every step forward, every question asked, every new friend made, every laugh shared, builds a brighter tomorrow. The truth is, while growing older is unavoidable, giving up on joy, purpose, or health is not. The next chapter is still yours to write. Why not make it one filled with discovery and hope? Chapter 3. The one change that brought me back to life. There are moments in life when it feels like the world has narrowed, like your days are passing by in black and white, not the bright colors you remember from years gone by. After I turned 70, I found myself in just such a place. The house was quiet, too quiet sometimes. Days would blend, each one just a repeat of the last. There were mornings when I wondered what would get me out of bed, now that I didn't have a job to rush off to or children who needed me for breakfast. It's a strange thing to feel so alone in a world that once felt so full. At first, I did what I thought I was supposed to do. I tried to accept this new chapter, convincing myself that this kind of loneliness and dullness was just normal aging. I filled my days with little routines, watering the plants, reading the newspaper, and taking slow walks around the block. But none of it felt meaningful. I was busy, but not alive. It was like I was watching life happen from a distance, and I just couldn't seem to step back into it. But then, something changed. Or rather, I made a change. And I want to tell you about it, not because it was miraculous, but because it was so surprisingly simple. The turning point came on a Tuesday afternoon, a day much like any other. I was staring out the window, watching the leaves swirl across the driveway, feeling invisible and unneeded. My neighbor, Linda, called to check in on me. She mentioned that our local community center was starting something new, a storytelling circle for seniors. She asked if I'd like to come along, just to listen. No pressure to talk if I didn't want to. For some reason, maybe out of boredom or maybe out of hope, I said yes. That evening, as I got ready to go, I almost canceled. The excuses bubbled up. It's getting dark. What if I don't know anyone? What if I have nothing to say? I think a lot of us have those worries, especially after we've spent time feeling alone. But something in Linda's voice, the warmth, the genuine invitation, nudged me forward. I put on my sweater, grabbed my coat, and stepped out the door. The community center was bright and welcoming, a hum of gentle voices filling the air. Folding chairs were arranged in a big circle, and a few people were already sharing stories. Some spoke quietly about growing up during the war, others laughed as they recalled family vacations or the first time they met their spouse. There was no competition, no one-upmanship. Just people, mostly over 70, trading memories like precious gifts. I sat and listened at first, nervous and a little awkward. But then, someone shared a story about learning to ride a bike as a child, and suddenly I was right back in my childhood, feeling the rush of wind on my face and my father's steady hand on my back. Before I knew it, I was smiling. Then, without really planning to, I raised my hand and told my own story, about the first time I drove across the country with nothing but a suitcase, a map, and a lot of optimism. The group listened, really listened. They laughed in the right places, nodded, and even clapped at the end. Something shifted inside me at that moment. I felt seen, not for my aches and pains or my age, but for the life I'd lived, the memories I carried. I realized how long it had been since anyone had asked about my stories, since I'd felt like I mattered. Here's the surprising thing. There's science behind what I felt that day. Sharing personal stories, especially in a group setting, triggers the release of oxytocin in our brains, the bonding hormone that helps us feel trust and connection. Psychologists say that when we share memories, we don't just revisit the past. We strengthen the neural pathways that make us feel alive and valued in the present. For seniors, these opportunities for social and emotional connection are as important for our well-being as diet or exercise. And you know what? You don't have to be a people person or a natural storyteller to benefit. Just being in a group, listening to others, and occasionally sharing a thought or a laugh is enough. The point isn't to perform, it's to connect. After that first meeting, I kept coming back. Tuesday evenings became something I looked forward to, a highlight on my calendar. I started to bake cookies to bring for the group, and I even exchanged phone numbers with a couple of folks. We'd call each other to check in, or sometimes just to share a funny story we remembered. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. It wasn't just about fighting loneliness. It was about finding purpose again. Having a reason to get dressed, to walk out the door, to engage with the world. Each week, I found myself feeling lighter and more hopeful. My sleep improved. I even started taking longer walks, just because I felt better. The fog that had settled around my days began to lift. Let me share another story, this time about someone I met in that group. Her name is Marjorie, and at 84, she was sure she had nothing interesting left to say. She'd lost her husband a few years before and, like me, had slipped into a routine that left her feeling invisible. But when she joined a storytelling circle, she listened for a few weeks and then, one night, she shared a memory about dancing in Times Square on VJ Day. The group was spellbound. People asked her questions and wanted to hear more. The next week, Marjorie brought a photo album and told more stories. She became the heart of the group, organizing birthday cards and cheering everyone on. She told me later, with tears in her eyes, "I thought my best days were behind me. But now, I feel like I'm living again." Maybe storytelling isn't your thing. That's perfectly fine. The real secret isn't in the storytelling. It's in making one small change that brings you back into the circle of life, in whatever way feels right for you. For me, it was sharing stories. For someone else, it might be joining a walking group, volunteering at the library, signing up for a class, or starting a garden with neighbors. The science is clear. Regular social interaction, however simple, can boost mood, sharpen memory, and even strengthen your immune system. One study from the National Institute on Aging showed that seniors who participated in group activities just once a week were significantly less likely to develop depression or memory problems than those who didn't. The activity didn't matter as much as the sense of belonging it created. So what can you do, starting today? First, look for one gentle step toward connection. Maybe you can call a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, or visit your local community center to see what activities are offered. Maybe you can volunteer, even for just an hour a week, at your church, library, or local animal shelter. If leaving home is hard, consider joining an online group for seniors. There are book clubs, craft circles, and even virtual travel groups meeting every day. The world is full of small communities waiting for someone just like you. And if you're nervous, that's normal. We all worry about being the new person, about not fitting in, about not having anything to say. But I promise you, most groups are full of people feeling the same way, just waiting for someone to break the ice. You might be surprised at how welcome you'll feel once you take that first step. Let me leave you with this. The one change that brought me back to life wasn't big or dramatic. It was as simple as saying yes to an invitation, as small as telling a story or listening to someone else's. That one change grew into a lifeline, a reason to smile, a spark of hope. And it's a change you can make, too, in your way and at your own pace. You are not invisible. You are not finished growing. The world still needs your stories, your laughter, your wisdom. No matter your age or circumstance, there is a place for you in this world, a circle waiting to welcome you home. So, what's the one change you might try? Don't wait for life to come knocking. Take a step, however small, and let yourself be part of the world again. I promise it's worth it. And if you ever need a friend to share your story with, I'll be right here, cheering you on every step of the way. Chapter 4. What I gained from this. It's amazing how one small change can open the door to an entirely new chapter of life, especially at an age when you've been told, again and again, that the best is already behind you. When I first walked into that community center, I didn't expect much. I told myself I was just going for the company, just to pass the time. If you'd told me then how much my life would change because of that one simple decision, I wouldn't have believed you. But looking back now, I can see so clearly what I gained from making that choice. Benefits I never imagined, and lessons that have touched every part of my life. To start with, I found myself looking forward to something again. For years, my calendar had been mostly empty, with just doctor's appointments or errands breaking up the days. Suddenly, every Tuesday evening was circled in bright red, a beacon of hope shining through the routine grayness of the week. The anticipation itself became a source of energy. I would think about what story I might share, or wonder what new memory someone else would bring to the circle. I realized that when you have something to look forward to, even a small event, it colors your whole week with a little more brightness. But it wasn't just anticipation. The connections I made at the storytelling group were deeper and more meaningful than I'd ever expected. There is something truly special about sharing your life stories with people who have lived through so many of the same moments. The music of the 1950s, the anxiety of the Cuban Missile Crisis, the wonder of the moon landing, the quiet courage of facing illness or loss. When someone across the circle nodded knowingly at a story about stubborn teenagers or laughed out loud about an old car that never started, I felt understood in a way that no amount of polite small talk ever could have accomplished. We formed real friendships, not just the surface-level acquaintances you might make at the supermarket, but bonds forged through shared vulnerability and laughter. There was Jim, who'd grown up on a farm and could still tell the funniest stories about mischievous goats. And Alice, who'd lived all over the world as a nurse and always brought back souvenirs for us to pass around and marvel at. There was also Marjorie, whose eyes lit up every time someone mentioned dancing. Together, we celebrated birthdays, comforted each other through tough times, and, perhaps most importantly, reminded each other that we still belonged somewhere. One of the most beautiful things I noticed was how much my confidence grew. Before I joined the group, I had started to question whether my opinions, or even my presence, mattered anymore. It's easy to feel invisible after retirement, especially when your family is busy or your friends are far away. But the simple act of sharing a story and seeing people genuinely listen, or watching someone's eyes light up in recognition, rebuilt my sense of self-worth, piece by piece. I began to speak up more, both in the group and outside of it. I started reaching out to neighbors, volunteering for small things at the library, and even writing letters to friends I hadn't seen in years. That spark of confidence didn't stay confined to Tuesday nights. It spread through my entire life. There's also a science behind this transformation. Studies have shown that meaningful social engagement can help preserve memory and slow cognitive decline in older adults. One research project at the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center in Chicago found that seniors who stayed socially active experienced up to a 70% slower rate of cognitive decline compared to those who were more isolated. The simple acts of conversation, storytelling, and laughter stimulate the brain, keeping it agile and responsive. Even more, being part of a supportive group lowers stress, which is linked to everything from better heart health to a stronger immune system. In other words, these gatherings weren't just good for my mood, they were good for my health in every way. But perhaps the greatest gift was the sense of purpose I rediscovered. When I stopped working, I lost a big part of what made me feel needed. It was as if I'd handed over my sense of purpose at the office door, not realizing I could pick it up again elsewhere. The storytelling group reminded me that I still had so much to give. My stories had value, not just as entertainment, but as a living thread in the tapestry of our community. I began to see myself not as someone whose best days were in the past, but as a mentor, a friend, and a keeper of memories for the next generation. One day, a young woman, just out of college, visited our group as part of a project to learn more about the lives of seniors. After the meeting, she came up to me and said, "Your story made me think about my grandmother in a whole new way. Thank you for sharing." At that moment, I realized how important it is for our voices to be heard, not just for ourselves, but for those who are coming after us. We are the bridge between generations, the living memory that makes history come alive. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Of course, not every moment was perfect. There were times when the stories turned sad, memories of lost loved ones, missed opportunities, or regrets. But even in those moments, there was healing. When Marjorie shared her grief over losing her husband, she didn't have to carry it alone. We listened, we comforted, and in doing so, we helped her begin to heal. That kind of support is priceless, and it reminded me of the simple truth that we are not meant to face life's hardest challenges alone. Over time, I noticed other changes too. My sleep improved, my appetite returned, and I found myself humming old songs as I moved around the house. Even my doctor remarked at my next checkup, "You seem more energetic lately. Whatever you're doing, keep at it." I told him about the group, and he nodded, saying, "That's the best kind of medicine I could prescribe." All these changes started with one small step. If you're reading this and thinking that it sounds too simple to be true, I understand. I was skeptical, too. But sometimes, the most powerful transformations come from the gentlest beginnings. A single decision to try something new, to show up, to share a little bit of yourself with others. I remember talking to Ruth, a friend from the group who was nearly 80. She told me, "I spent so long thinking there was nothing left for me to do, that I'd just drift through these years. But now, every week, I remember who I am again. I laugh, I cry, and I live. That's what I gained, myself." What I want you to know is this. No matter your age, you have so much still to give and to receive. The world is always ready for your wisdom, your kindness, and your laughter. Whether you find connection through storytelling, gardening, volunteering, or any small act of reaching out, you are making a difference. Not just in your own life, but in the lives of everyone you touch. So if you're feeling unsure, if you're wondering whether one small change can matter, let me assure you, it can. It did for me, and it has for so many others. Start with something gentle, something that brings you a sense of hope, even if it's just a little. Let yourself look forward to something again. Give yourself permission to be seen, to be heard, to belong. And remember, every day is a chance to write a new story. The past may hold many chapters, but the most beautiful pages might still be waiting for you to turn them. You are not alone. You are part of a community, a generation, a family. What you gain from your life can never be taken away, but what you can still gain might surprise you most of all. So, what will you look forward to this week? What story might you share? What new friend might you meet? Take that step. You never know just how much you might gain. As we come to the end of this story, I hope you've seen just how much is possible, even after 70. Sometimes, all it takes is a single, gentle step in a new direction to bring color and meaning back into our lives. The loneliness and quiet we feel aren't signs that life is over. They're just reminders that we're ready for connection, for purpose, for something more. If there's one thing I hope you take away, it's this: you are never too old, too late, or too lost to find joy again. The world is full of people who are waiting to listen, to laugh, to share a memory, or simply to sit quietly beside you. Your story is still being written, and every day is a blank page. It's okay to feel nervous or uncertain. That's part of being human, no matter your age. Maybe today is the day you reach out. A phone call, a note, joining a group, or just taking a walk where you might meet someone new. These small choices can open doors you never knew were there. Don't let old beliefs hold you back from trying something gentle and new. I'd love to know what you've learned from this video. Is there a story or a habit you want to bring into your own life? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There's a whole community here, cheering you on. Thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, your best days are never behind you. Sometimes, they're just waiting for you to say yes.